Behind the Red Line, Episode 12, The Eastbound Strangler, The Women in the Water. Atlantic City in November feels different. The casinos still glow, but the light doesn't reach the outskirts. To the dark motels, the empty lots, the swampy ditches behind buildings nobody wants to claim. This is the part of the city where the glamour ends and survival begins. On November 20th, 2006, the body of a woman was discovered face down in a drainage ditch behind the Golden Key Motel, a forgotten building just off the White Horse Pike. The water was shallow, barely ankle high. A trickle of cold marsh runoff, but she wasn't breathing. A passerby saw her red coat first, bright against the muddy water, bright against the dead November weeds. He thought she was a mannequin, a cruel prank, something dumped. But when he stepped closer, he saw hair caught in the reeds. He saw a hand floating just beneath the surface. He saw skin. He froze. And then he screamed. Police arrived expecting one body. What they found instead was four. 4 women, all lined up, facing east, placed with intention. Someone had arranged them, as if laying them down for sleep. Atlantic City in 2006 was a city built on contradictions. Bright neon, broken dreams, tourists throwing cash into machines, while locals fought to survive in weekly rented rooms. Behind the casinos stood a different world, motels with flickering vacancy signs, drug corridors whispered about but rarely patrolled, women walking between shadows, selling whatever they could, minutes, moments, pieces of themselves, just to make it to morning. This is where the 4 victims lived pieces of their lives, not because they chose danger, but because danger was everywhere. And in this world walked a man who watched, a man who hunted, a man who knew exactly where the cracks were, and who fell through them. The first victim found was Barbara Bredor, 42, a woman with a warm smile, a history of addiction, and a heart that people remembered even if the system didn't. She tried to get clean. She had periods of hope, but the streets pulled her back each time. Next was Molly Dilts, 20, the youngest. A girl, really? A drifter who bounced between New Jersey and Pennsylvania. She wasn't reported missing. No one knew where she went. Her story was blurred by poverty, by transient life, by being too young with nowhere to land. Then Kimberly Raffo, 35, a mother, a friend, a woman whose struggles were tied to the kind of trauma most people never heal from. She battled addiction fiercely, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. People said she had a kindness that cut through everything. And finally, Tracy Ann Roberts, 23, bright, sarcastic, a girl who didn't deserve the darkness that found her. She had been missing for weeks before anyone thought to tell police. The media labeled them as prostitutes, a word too small, too cruel, too dismissive for the weight of their lives. But the truth is, they were human. They were hurting. They were trying. They mattered. The Eastbound Strangler stripped them of dignity in death, but not in memory. The bodies were found behind the Golden Key Motel, a rundown building where rooms were rented by the hour, where drug deals happened behind doors, where women worked because rent was always due. The ditch behind the motel was long, shallow, and hidden from the street by a wall of dead reeds. This was not a random spot. This was someone's chosen place. Each body lay face down. Each pointed east, toward the rising sun, toward the ocean, toward escape. Each spaced a few feet apart. Their heads were near the same alignment, like someone placed them gently, as if positioning them mattered. There were no signs of struggle where they lay. They had been moved, placed. They hadn't drowned. The water was too shallow. Their deaths came before the ditch. Atlantic City police realized instantly this was the work of one man, a serial killer who killed somewhere else, then brought the women here to rest in a line only he understood. A ritual, a message, a signature, or simply convenience. Detectives didn't know. They still don't. The Golden Key Motel had a reputation, a place where people went when they had nowhere else. A building soaked in stories no one wanted to tell. The killer knew this place well. He knew the traffic. He knew the routines. He knew which rooms were empty, which women worked the area, which nights were quiet. He didn't choose the motel by accident. He chose it because it blended into the background noise of Atlantic City's underbelly. Everyone came and went anonymously. No one looked closely at the men who checked in. No one paid attention to a car parked behind the building at 3 a.m. No one questioned a man walking toward the swamp. This motel was a perfect hunting ground, and he used it. No killer was ever arrested, but the theories are as dark as they are chilling. Theory number 1, the local predator. Some believed the killer was a man who lived near the motel, someone familiar with the swamp, comfortable with the area, and trusted enough by the women to approach without fear. Theory number 2, a police officer. Terrifying. But some victims told friends they had been picked up by cops before. Not real cops, maybe, or maybe men abusing uniforms. This theory still haunts the case. Theory number 3. A motel employee. Someone with master keys. Someone who saw women come and go. Someone who knew which rooms were occupied, which corners stayed quiet, which guests wouldn't check out alive. Theory number 4. A serial truck driver. Atlantic City sits near several major highways. Women disappear in truck stop corridors all across the East Coast. A driver coming through regularly could have hunted efficiently and left no trace. Theory number 5. A repeat client. Someone the women knew. Someone who held their trust. Someone who crossed the line from buyer to killer. But in the end, all that remains are theories, because the truth slipped away with the tide. One name still haunts the files: Terry Olson, a handyman who lived at the Golden Key Motel. He was the last person seen with at least one of the victims. He had a violent past. He lived 20 feet from the ditch where the bodies were found. His girlfriend said disturbing things about his behavior. He failed parts of a polygraph, but prosecutors didn't have enough. Not for 4 murders. He walked free, and to this day he swears innocence. Some believe him, some don't. But the truth, if he wasn't the killer, he lived dangerously close to one. Like too many cases involving sex workers, the women weren't taken seriously until their bodies were found. Some families said police brushed them off. Some missing person reports weren't filed quickly. Some concerns weren't investigated. By the time the bodies surfaced, the evidence was washed away. Time had stripped the truth bare, and the killer had disappeared back into anonymity. The Eastbound Strangler didn't escape justice because he was brilliant. He escaped because the system didn't care about his victims. The city failed them. The motel failed them. The world failed them. And the killer counted on that. The 4th victim was found deeper in the ditch than the rest. Face down like the others, lined up perfectly. Investigators believe she may have been the last, the one that ended the killer's pattern. Some detectives think he fled town afterward. Others think he was arrested for another crime. Some think he died. Some think he still lives in Atlantic City. Quiet, ordinary, unnoticed. But the ditch behind the Golden Key has been paved over now. The motel torn down. The land flattened. Yet the memory of what happened there remains carved into Atlantic City's bones. The Eastbound Strangler walked through the shadows of Atlantic City and left 4 women in a shallow grave behind a forgotten motel. He left no confession, no signature, no reason, just a line of bodies facing east, toward the sunrise they never got to see. The case remains unsolved. The killer remains unknown, but the women are remembered. Tonight, we say their names. We honor their lives. We refuse to let them fade into the water. This is Behind the Red Line. Episode 12, The Eastbound Strangler,